I am Jackie Somerville, and today I'm having a discussion with Matthew. And Matthew's not only a younger man who's dated older women, but he is also a clinical social worker and mental health therapist. So we have somebody who is an expert at human behavior and is in that profession. And so this is going to be a really interesting discussion about the dynamics between older women and younger men and the social stigma that seems to come along with that. So I'm really excited. Matthew reached out to me and I'm so thrilled that he did. I know a lot of you have been wanting this kind of discussion. So here it is. So welcome, Matthew. I'm so glad to have you on Jackie Straight Up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Jackie. It's a pleasure being on. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Yes, I am too. And I know you've got some questions for me, but I just wanted to start off by saying that I just finished watching Lonely Planet, a new movie on Netflix with Laura Dern and Liam Hemsworth. Did you see this?
No, I've just heard about this. I
I
have
mean,
not seen this.
it's so thrilling to me that there are more and more, especially right now, of movies with older women and younger men. And I'll tell you the most exciting thing for me is that in the older movies, in the past, it was always just a little fling. And in the end of the day, it was
Hmm.
wrong. And they ended up with someone older or somebody the same age, the woman did. And, and it was sort of like a wrong thing almost. And they just used it for sort of sexual titillation. But these movies, they actually end up together. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, we have had a turn in the tide here for the better. And the other one that I just finished watching, like, I don't know, night before last, and I went to bed super late because I couldn't stop watching it, was
Hmm.
Deceitful Love. It's an Italian series,
Oh,
six-part series. And oh my God, she's 60, he's 30, and it is so hot. And you
oh
go through
wow.
this not knowing whether he's a nasty con man and a murderer, and you go through all of this. And
Hmm.
I don't want to ruin the thing for everybody. But again, I was blown away by what they chose the ending to be. So anyway, I just wanted to start by saying I'm so excited that that's what's going on.
Yes, exactly. I think it's like there is this sort of change when it comes with society and accepting it a lot more. Now, of course, like there still needs to be a lot more progress because people still do have their viewpoints on that. But seeing that within media and also seeing that within actors as well.
Do you have questions for me to start off with, or how would you like to
Abs-
proceed?
Absolutely. I think the question I have, and which is a very because I can come from the younger man's perspective, I would be curious to know when you first had that experience with a younger man, like what was going through your thoughts? Were you nervous at the time? Were you like apprehensive? Did you not want to engage? You see that, oh, this is gonna be a short-term thing, or were you more like, you know what? Fuck it, let's just see how this goes.
Yeah, I am a fly by the seat of my pants, shoot from the hip kind of woman, always have been. My life has been a great adventure. I immigrated in my 20s by myself, not knowing a living soul, with no job, no home, nothing. Traveled around the world, a lot of it on my own. And I've had amazing temporary, what I call them temporary love situations, temporary romances. So I'm not the kind of person that would have judged the situation or gone, oh, this is clearly, maybe I shouldn't do it, or this is clearly only a short term thing. I'm one of those people who just, life presents me with things. I don't think they're coincidences. So,
Mhm.
I've got a very deep spiritual belief, and I believe I'm guided by the source, call it divine, whatever it is, and not by the rules of society, not by the ordinary, boring, nasty ways of doing things. I am so disinterested in an ordinary life, never been interested in it. And so that, all of that it was just fine for me. It was an exciting adventure. Having said that, I never thought, and because look, you go from being, I was always the youngest one, I was always the younger
Mhm.
woman, right?
Mhm.
So it's so weird when that shift happens. I mean, I was with a guy 20 years older than me, right up until, well, for about 10 years. So from about 33 to 43.
Mhm.
He was 20 years older than me. And, so at that time, I was always the youngest one around. And so it was so weird to come out of that. And when I was 44, I dated a 24-year-old who I met in flight school because I decided to learn to fly airplanes at that point in my life. And I never thought for a moment, oh, let me see if I can find myself a younger guy. Like that wasn't even on my radar. It was just,
Mhm.
I'm living my life. I believe that I'm divinely guided. And whatever God source, causes to happen in my life, I'm like investigating. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Who am I to question it when it sort of lands in your lap, so to speak? So that's how I live my life. And it was a wonderful romance. It lasted about 8 months. And it was my first foray into being with a younger man, certainly a much younger man, because he was 20 years. I went from someone 20 years older to someone 20 years younger in a very short period of time. So that's, I guess that's my take on it.
I found within my own kind of dating life, like I've had those experiences where it's very like, okay, let's go, let's see what this, let's see what happens. And those have been wonderful experiences. And I've had other experiences where it's very apprehensive. There's a lot of shame, some will say guilt, but it's ultimately shame from having those kind of like being with a younger guy. And that was something I've always found to be very interesting during my dating life with older women. Because, I've personally had, I don't want to say shame or guilt about that. I would say more so of like anxiety about that. Like wondering, like, wondering about if I was like worthy enough to date an older woman, or whether or not, like, were people gonna judge, and kind of slowly had to slowly start getting myself out of that as well. Um, because there's a reason why I was attracted to this woman or women, and I had to sort of explore that myself. So it's just very interesting hearing people's people's background and people's perspective when they start going outside of the quote unquote norm of what society says, and start to kind of like see the person. Yes, you can see the person as the age, but you can also see past that and see the person as the person and what you are attracted to that person as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I have some questions around that, but the first thing I want to know is, so did the older women that you dated feel shame, uh, or was that you and you felt afraid of being judged? Did they feel afraid of being judged? And did
Mhm.
you feel any shame around that, or was that sort of them that was feeling the shame?
I would say I would find them feeling shame. At the time I was thinking it was guilt, but like going into my career, like a lot like guilt is something like I've done something wrong. And then shame is like I am wrong. And
Ah,
so when you're in those kind of dynamics, like especially as two consenting people, where does the guilt belong to? Like, at the end of
mm-hmm.
the day, there's no guilt within that. So it's in the sense of like you're internalizing that what society's saying, and therefore, like if I'm dating this younger man, if I'm dating this older woman, I am then wrong in doing this. So now I feel shame about myself, even
Yeah,
though objectively I'm not doing anything wrong.
right.
And so I've noticed women who've had that, who've been able to who've been able to like enjoy the time with me, but then would say, "But you need to find a younger woman. You need to find a woman your age, or like this can't last long." And it was something I was very, if I took a step back, especially back then, I would be able to see like, okay, I see where she's coming from. As I do now, I can understand if I'm in a situation, I can see where the woman's coming from, because especially with the older woman, because I think a lot of pressures tend toward to older women than the younger man. And I think coming from
Yeah.
the younger man's perspective, I think the judgment and the judgment I had, and I don't want to say like embarrassment, but I would say more so of, you could say shame, was am I leading this woman on? Or like, am
Ah.
I gonna get to this point like I'm dating this woman and then I'm gonna be like, well, like maybe I want something long term, without thinking, oh, well, I can have something with this woman that's long term. So I think when it comes, especially with younger men coming into a relationship dynamic, we come into a relationship, excuse me, with an older woman, they really have to see, okay, well, am I doing this for a casual purpose? am I doing this to explore what the relationship can be? Because you have to know yourself in that relationship, and you have to know like how other people are going to view you as well.
Yeah, so incredibly interesting, really. Wow. I mean, I think that it says a lot about you that you considered that. I think that's not something I've ever thought of, that some of these younger guys are feeling like, gosh, I don't want to lead her on. I think that that says a lot about you as a person, that you were concerned about that. And I think it's like with any relationship, communication is so key. After the initial dance, the sort of attraction dance, and once you sort of realize you're really into each other and you're having a good time, then it is time to maybe say, hey, I just want to chat about this because I don't want to lead you on. And at the same time, I'm really into you. And at least then you both can be either on the same page or you agree to disagree on it and go your separate ways or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I love that you consider that. And of course, there is the biological issue of if there's an older woman and a younger guy, and he might decide that he wants to have children. Maybe she's got kids and he's happy with her kids, or maybe he wants to have his own kids and she doesn't. So there's always that. But you had said when we were initially communicating about having this chat that it was the fact that I spoke about mindfulness and about being in the moment and really just, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, allow yourself to feel good in the moment and have that relationship be whatever it's meant to be right there and then. None of us can predict the future. None of us can. And so I think communication and honesty is really important. And on the other hand, also just to remember to just be in the moment and don't say no to something just because of societal pressures or what might happen down the road. Being present and loving the present moment and really getting deep into what life is presenting to you is life. Life is a series of moments at the end of the day. That's all it is. And one of the biggest things that I run into in my coaching business is people want certainty. And certainty is such a boring thing because in the place of uncertainty is the place where anything is possible. And so when
Mhm.
people can make peace with uncertainty, they can really live a great life. Making peace with uncertainty, I think, is so key with in terms of love, in terms of money, in terms of pretty much everything. Career, anyway. It's I can go down that rabbit hole on that subject forever. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So tell me more about mindfulness, present moment stuff. What struck you about that in some of the work that I do?
I, what I really liked about mindfulness, because mindfulness, as you said, it's about being in the present moment. It's about just knowing, like, okay, what we're experiencing right now, what I'm experiencing, what you're experiencing, this is what life really is. We know we can focus so much on the past and focus so much on the future, but typically, especially within therapy, what we say is like when you focus so much on the future, we tend to get anxious. We focus so much on the past, we tend to get depressed. And so when we focus on the present, we find a lot more of those sort of positive emotions we can feel. And when it pertains to relationships, I think one of the benefits when it comes with age gap relationships too, especially with older women and younger men, they can actually explore more of that mindfulness relationship because there isn't that kind of pressure. And that's why I personally even like to engage with, dating older women because, there is that pressure as a younger man, like getting married, having kids, and again, within the field that I'm in, I've always find that it's better to really know your partner before you make those big life decisions. And I think when it comes with an older woman and a younger man, they have that opportunity, especially if the younger man is okay with knowing that I may not end up having kids, or the younger man's like, I'm okay, I don't want children. They can actually explore that relationship and not feel like you got to rush in order to get to this relationship. So you have to meet these sort of like social markers in a way. You can naturally let it flow. Um, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of that. I always do believe that like we want certainty, as you said, we want a lot of certainty. However, life is uncertain. And every relationship you get into, every single relationship is always temporary because you're either going to break up or your partner or yourself is going to pass away.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I think not only does it help within, again, age gap relationships, but also regular relationships too, like more so like same age relationships. And so you can be able to, like, if you have that idea, have that understanding of, I can't control the future, then you can naturally grow as partners.
Yes. Oh my God, such an important point. And it makes me think of how when people start dating, especially women, they have this checklist and they want to know right off the bat, is the guy, a yes or a no on all these super important things? Does he want to get married? Does he want to have kids? Oh my God, I need to know this right away. And when I was doing online dating, I used to get the question, as I'm sure everybody who does online dating is, what is your intention here? Or what are you looking for? Oh my God, I hated that question. What are you
Yeah.
looking for? My answer was always, I will know it when I see it. That was my answer. I do not have a checklist. I will know it when I see it. And whether that's a one night stand or whether that's a long term relationship, I don't care. I'm here to let the
Mhm.
universe unfold and I will know it when I see it. And that was always my attitude. Well, certain people just wanted to know, no, I'm looking for a long term relationship. You're safe dating me. Who knows that right off the bat? You're
Yeah.
dealing with a perfect stranger. What are you thinking, even imposing a list on them? Like,
Yeah.
let them show you who they are as you show them who they are. And either it's a yes or no for one night, for 1 week, or a lifetime, you know?
Hmm. Exactly. I think people do have this, the uncertainty causes so much anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that people that we as humans are going to struggle to overcome. And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's good to handle it on the individual level. I noticed coming from the guy's perspective too, and of course this is more anecdotal. I don't want to generalize. I know for men, like once we really like someone, we like a woman, that's when we want to keep her. We want to have that relationship.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of a lot of Texas guys can do, or like you go on like these online, you look at YouTube or you look at like dating coaches and try to find ways you can sort of like, I don't want to say play games, but try to like get her attention. And just sometimes you forget to be who you are and naturally show your personality and just see if the person is receptive of that. And I think
Yes.
that's something where I've noticed that just not only just personal, but with my clients, but also my friends, also with here we hear on social media, which is that people have that trouble of sitting in the uncertainty and just wanting to and being who they are so they can actually attract the person that will be receptive towards them. I
Yes.
think I think unfortunately it's very complicated now within online dating. And I don't think it's because of, I'm sorry, with dating in general. I don't think it's because of like social media or online dating. I think it's because we're more aware of it and we're growing, and this is just my opinion. I think we're growing as a species as well, like with like understanding more nuance. And I think that just scares us.
Yeah, I think also it's information overload. There's
Hmm.
so many experts around every corner. We have access to so many things that everybody's trying to get everything right all the time. And in the process of getting things right, you're missing out on life because life doesn't exist in the right. Life exists in all the experiments that get you there. And so yeah, everybody tries to like, I need to make this perfect. I need everybody to hit this thing, and it doesn't really exist. So yeah, Ralph Waldo Emerson said that self-trust is the first secret of success. And I
Hmm.
love that quote because self-trust to me is the first secret of success when it comes to dating, when it comes to love, when it comes to career, money, friendship, whatever it is. Self-trust is the first secret of success. And so what you're referring to is when people don't trust themselves, right? You need to trust yourself and you need to realize that you are enough and that you don't have to be super slick. You don't have to follow this guy, this dating guru who knows all the right things to say. uh, none of those things have really worked on me. It's when somebody has shown their true personality. even if they were nervous, they somehow got up the courage to approach me. And I thought that that was a pretty amazing thing. If somebody is nervous, if they're not overconfident and they still force themselves to approach you, to me, that shows character. And I really love that. So everybody's trying to get it right, not to show their nerves, trying to be perfect. And that's not necessarily the way. Be who you are. And Dr. Susan said, be who you are, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Something along those lines. You know that quote?
I think that's there, yeah.
I love it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
truth, right? I mean, if somebody doesn't like who you are and how you approach, well, that's just divine intervention or protection. You're just being protected from being in a relationship with a bitch.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Next.
Exactly. I think a lot of things people struggle with internal validation. You know, they do struggle. That's why we end up, and we need that external validation. We end up in a mesh relationships. And so that which is like codependent or dependent relationships. And what we want is that kind of like, I always tell my clients, you want it to be like healthy. You're still individuals, but you're sharing your life together, and some things overlap, but you're still who you are. And I think that comes from that internal validation. Once you have that internal validation, that self-love, that self-trust, it just makes dating a lot easier, because then you're able to see the person. If you start dating the person, you're able to see like, okay, I'm noticing this red flag, and I'm not liking this red flag. And okay, let me continue dating. I'm still seeing more red flags. Then you'll be able to not feel like you lost something, but that you're walking away from something for the betterment of who you are. And so I think that's important, to have that self-trust, as you said, that self-love and that internal validation, so that you can cultivate a healthy relationship. But more important, you still maintain a healthy relationship with yourself.
Yes, and it's the absolute key to handling rejection. I mean, every single human on the planet, if they're actually out there putting taking chances and living life, are going to get rejected in all sorts of walks of life. And so when you trust yourself, you know that you're going to be fine if and when you get rejected. That's another big one, because so then you're not afraid to open your heart. I think so many men and women are afraid to open their heart because they're trying to protect themselves from being hurt. And what you're doing is you're protecting yourself from living your life. You're protecting yourself from getting to the end of your days by going, damn, that was a wild ride. I gave it my all. It was fantastic. And instead, get to the end of your days with regret. So yeah, I think self-trust, and that's why in the course for younger men that I created, for younger men who want to date older women, the whole focus is on building your confidence. In other words, trusting yourself, loving yourself, so that you are fine no matter what happens. And so you can step into this strange or different relationship, not worrying as a woman that a younger guy is going to leave you for somebody younger, right? Because you trust yourself that you've made a good decision, number one, and that if you haven't, or if it doesn't last, you're going to be fine. Yes, there's going to be some pain involved, but at the end of the day, you're going to be fine. So it does take self-trust to open your heart and really go all in. And, I'm a speaker, so quotes are like one of my favorite things. And as Rumi said, gamble everything for love. If you're a true human being, half-heartedness does not reach into majesty. And we live half-heartedly because we're so afraid of what people think and of rejection. And we protect ourselves into a half-baked life. And so that thing of self-trust is super important for all of this. And brings me to one of the reasons why older women, haven't thought about this wonderful thing of opening up to dating younger men, is because they are afraid, well, obviously he's going to leave me for somebody younger. And that's sort of the narrative. That's a societal belief. That's the narrative. And yeah, he may. But you could be with somebody the same age or older who could run off with the secretary tomorrow. Anything could happen, which is why self-trust, making peace with uncertainty, living your life, and to me, having a spiritual belief, believing that there's something greater than me, so that when something in my own life doesn't falls apart, it's not just my ego that I have to, there's nothing but your ego, and now your ego is crushed. So now you're desperate. For me, I
Mhm.
always just go, okay, there's divine protection here. The source of life knows more than I do about this situation. I'm going to trust it. So, but anyway, I totally understand those apprehensions on an older woman's side. And when I married my younger man, who was 17 years younger than me, naturally, that is a thought that comes into your mind. Is he going to leave me 5 years, 10 years, 5 months, whatever from now for somebody younger? And I just thought, yeah, that's a possibility, but I'm not going to say no to something so passionate and so special and so beautiful in my life because I'm afraid of rejection down the road. I'm going to live in this moment and believe and trust that whatever is right here, right now is a good thing, as long as you're not hurting
Mhm.
somebody else.
Yeah.
So, that's my take. And that's why, I've helped. Oh God, it was so exciting. A friend of mine in Orange County who I encouraged to maybe expand her horizons to a little younger and expand her age range on the dating apps and so on. And she contacted me, gosh, a few months ago, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm so grateful to you for suggesting this." She's in her 40s. She's dating a guy who's 26. And she said, "I've come alive. This is like the best thing ever. And I wouldn't have done it if you hadn't kept talking about it and encouraging me." And this is what I get from pretty much everybody who I've either coached or helped outside of coaching to try to expand their age horizons. Um,
Mhm.
is a younger man will make an older woman feel like she's come alive, like on
Mhm.
fire, alive again, even if she feels like she's been kind of dead for years. And that's what I see in these movies as well, is the older woman is just coming alive again, back into her own or even better than before. And
Mhm.
and a lot of the time a younger man will do that for an older woman. Anyway, I go
Yeah.
on, but that's just some of my thoughts.
No, I think that's stuff I've even heard as well. I've heard that from older women, like just coming alive, being able to be who they are. And you see that within those dates of them feeling comfortable, joking around, being silly, dancing, and just like some stuff in which you've seen, like when I've looked back, I'm like, oh, you've repressed this for a long period of time. And like being able to feel comfortable, again, just being who they are. And and I would even touch on, especially from the younger guy's perspective of, our own fears, especially when we're really interested in an older woman. Will she leave me for a man her age who
Mm.
has stuff that I don't have? Because
Mm.
I'm still working towards that.
Yeah.
Um, and she always going to see me as someone who she needs to continue consistently teach. Is she going to see
Interesting.
me as an equal? Like, so those are like the fears in which I know that like I've had, and I've talked to other younger men that they have as well, which is just like not feeling like we're going to be good enough, or not feeling we're going to be the man that she wants, or like we're going to be just a temporary thing, especially if we're interested in more. And I think I think how to really work on that is really understanding, and this applies to older women too, why is this person with me? Why is this person consistently coming to see me? And realizing that you're more than just what you can only offer, or like, an older woman can see the fact that you're opening to learning. That right there is a very attractive thing, because I've seen that with older women. They're still open to learn, and that's very attractive. Not just stuck in your ways. And I think that's something where once you have that self-trust, and again, have more of that self-love, knowing your qualities, your good qualities, knowing what you can offer as well, because there's always going to be someone who can offer quote unquote something better. So I think once you realize that, okay, like I'm good of who I am, I can offer this person. If they can accept it, great. If they don't, okay, I'm okay with that. And I think what I found when it comes to the younger men and older woman dynamic is that, especially older women, there's more of that openness.
Mm.
that at least, anecdotally that I've seen, they're open to more of knowing that, okay, there's an age difference, there maybe could be a generation difference, a music difference, and they're open to learning, they're open to growing. And I think younger men, I found too, it doesn't have to be a short-term casual thing. It can also be even something more as well. That it can grow into something more. And I think one of the things I found with some younger men I see with myself is like we have this mental blockage. Well, it has to be only short term. But then we have these feelings with this woman. And so being open to explore that and kind of seeing where it goes. And I found that to be to be a very fulfilling relationship. Statistically shown, older women, younger men have more of a fulfilling relationship than even other kind of other relationships as well. So
Really?
that, yeah,
The
oh yeah,
statistics show it's
statistically,
more
there
fulfilling.
yeah, there's more fulfillment in there. And
Yeah.
that could be for a variety of reasons too. But a lot of that is not only the sexual component, but also the more of emotional component to that, and also respect as well. I do feel like, as a younger man, you have like you see an older woman, there is this sort of like more of like this respect that we give, and there's more of this aura to an older woman that's very appealing. Um, I just do find it that, yeah, socially it's even though things are changing, there's still that stigma there. And that's why a lot of the younger guys, like if I tell them like, oh yeah, I'm seeing this older woman, they're like, really? That's amazing. Like I've always thought about that before. I just never did it. Like, how is it? And I can tell they're interested. And my whole thing is like, just why don't you just do it? And like, no, I can't do it. Like, my parents would say something, my friends say something. What happens if I do get in a relationship and then we break up and I end up with someone my age and then she has a problem with it. So I do see a lot of those kind of fears from the younger man's perspective that we have to overcome, that we have to be okay with the idea of that, yeah, this is not what people see as, again, the quote unquote norm. And so there's going to be a lot of judgments. There's going to be side eyes, but being okay with that, being who you are, and being okay with the relationship you have with that woman.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
as an older woman, I always felt very happy and very proud of having a younger man on my arm, as it were, and or holding hands with my younger guy. I always felt like if they're looking at me for that, this is a really good thing.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think having that attitude is very is very impactful. And I think from the younger man, it's like, yeah, I got this older, mature woman who knows who she is.
And she's
And that
chosen
right,
me.
she chosen me. Exactly.
Yeah.
She's chosen me. And that's something that you can hold pride to as well. So you can even play with those age gap dynamics and really help that encourage you instead of having that to be something that's discouraging. You can have to be so encouraging, and which betters the relationship too.
Yeah. I mean, look, I absolutely have loved it so much. And the younger men in my life have been such a muse, like my muses when it comes to writing and creating my one woman show and all of that. It was all around that dynamic. And it is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I'm so glad that that 24-year-old hit on me at flight school when I was 44, because like I said, it wasn't my radar. He was the one who, and I was like, what? But he's so young, but who cares? He's really cute, and let's go down this path. So I find it life changing, and the women that I've helped get into it are also have also found it life changing. So I just want all the younger men out there to know that there are plenty of older women who would be open to it or who are already open to it. And don't hold back because you are terrified. Yes, you're going to get rejected from some people, but just remember you're being saved from someone who's not for you. So, but all the stuff that you said just now was so good, Matthew, and so helpful, I'm sure, for all the younger guys out there who want to know that they're not alone with those fears that you just articulated. And I know this is probably a very deep question that could take forever to answer, because there's probably so many aspects to it. But what do they do to overcome that, all those fears that you just laid out? You know,
Yeah.
what can they do to go, okay, I feel the fear, but I'm going to do it anyway?
I think the one thing I've noticed is, especially in my work with men, um, and if this is changing within generations, of course, which is you have to be okay with feeling your emotions.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And I do see the change in generations, but how I do see things, it's slow change.
Yeah.
You have to be okay with feeling emotions. You have to be okay with feeling anxiety, feeling sadness, feeling any kind of emotion that makes you vulnerable.
Yeah.
And not seeing it just as weakness, because it's not weakness.
Yeah.
You know, once you can understand your emotions, you can come from a place of strength. So once you really see your emotions and you see, okay, I'm anxious about talking to her. Okay, you can see that you're anxious about talking to her because you really like her. You think she's attractive. You know, you should think she's funny. You want to go to her. You want to engage with her. And once you're aware of that and you challenge some of those negative self-talk, like challenging the fact that I'm not good enough, or what happens if she says no? Um, or like, or do I look good right now? Just sort of challenging that and being like, fuck it, let me just go up and just do it. Because once you go up and do it, you may get rejected, but you're gonna feel good that you did it, at least. Especially if you had that
Absolutely.
especially if you have that perspective of like, hey, I did something I was afraid of. And then that helps encouraging you. That helps with continue to encourage you to try again more, or feeling comfortable like going online. And hey, maybe you're gonna have like a week where you're not gonna get any matches, but being okay with that and just using that as a tool while you're going out talking to other women.
Yes.
Um, but then when it comes like, overcoming a lot of, again, even like societal judgments, on that, I really do think a lot of that comes from understanding why there's those societal judgments and understanding if it's actually true or not. A lot of those judgments come from our past understanding how we think the world's working. We're seeing now the world is changing and we're understanding things in a very nuanced level. And so once you kind of see like, okay, this person has a judgment on me, but they can't explain that judgment, the reason why I shouldn't be doing this, then therefore, like, then should I really listen to this person? Or can I just go about with how I'm feeling?
Yeah.
I think once you really understand your emotions, once you understand people's judgments. Again, understanding. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to accept it, but just understanding where it comes from, you're able to really make the decision that you want to make for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you are interested in someone, go for it. And
Yes.
and and experience that. I tell myself, I tell my friends, I tell my clients, I tell my family, failure is part of life, or failing to be clear, failing is a part of life. It doesn't
Yeah.
make you a failure. You gotta
Yes.
fail. You gotta
Yes.
fail so you can learn. And men, we can do that when it comes to, like, let's say the gym or something, or video games. We can fail, we can overcome it. But when it comes with dating a woman, getting rejected, that is the biggest thing that we're like, fuck that. We're not gonna experience that. But that is something, once we go in and we experience that and we know we can overcome that, we can become stronger people. And I think, and again, this applies to women too. And so, like, I do think it's important to take those risks, because you can only get the benefit from that. And I do think a lot of the intimidation, especially when it comes to going up to an older woman, I think that right there is like, once you get rejected, yeah, that sucks. But once you don't get rejected, you get the number, you get the date, that's going to be something that's going to be very, like, not just, I was going to say, heartwarming, but also very encouraging. Like, and let me,
Yes.
like, I'm good enough. Like, she said yes to me. Hey, it didn't work out, but at least I got the date. At least I got a date with her, or at least she talked to
Exactly.
me for a little bit.
Yeah, and really apply the logic of sales, which is
Hmm.
every single no gets you closer to a yes. So go out and see how many no's you can get, because they're getting you closer to your yes. And
Yeah.
if men just applied the same stuff they apply business to dating, they'd be like, okay, it doesn't matter because that no just got me closer to the yes.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing. And the other thing, just based on what you just said, is the biggest fear that I have in life is the fear of regret. That has always been, and I think that's a good fear, that has always been the driving factor in my life. I never ever want to get to the end of my days saying, oh darn, look, and it's a proven fact that human beings regret what they did not do. We very rarely, if ever, regret what we did do. And
Hmm.
so I remember a guy who approached me in a shopping mall in Montreal once, and I was just sitting there. It was back in the day. I was in my 20s, so there were no smartphones. I had a big old map sitting on the table, and I was having a cold drink because it was hot, Montreal summer, humid. And he had black leather on and a motorcycle helmet. And he came up to me and he asked me if in very broken English, he was French, um, if he could help me find something on the map. That was his approach, which was fantastic. He looked at the surroundings. He thought, what can I say to get to know her? And it was an amazing romance in my life. It was one of the most romantic encounters I've ever had. I've written about it. But one of the things was when I went back to Vancouver, which is where I lived, he would write me these amazing love letters. It was kind of before email was really a thing, personal thing. And in the love letters, and I still have them, he said one day, he said, I sat there looking at you, knowing I wanted so badly to approach you. And all I kept saying to myself was, what are you going to think if you never see her again? If you let her go without approaching her right now, you will never see her again. And so I got up the courage. And he wrote that to me in this letter. And it was so beautiful. And I thought, yeah, exactly that. I need to remember his words in when I'm afraid in business to approach a client, or to do a deal of some kind for fear of rejection or whatever it is, to remember his words. I kept looking at her thinking, if you let her go, you're never going to see her again. So you got to just take the chance. As Wayne Gretzky famously said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so that's the truth. You've got to take the shots. You got to. And every
Yeah.
no gets you closer to a yes.
Well, yeah. Well, life is just experience. So
Yeah.
why would you rob yourself from that experience?
Yes.
And sometimes also too, like it's okay to feel like uncomfortable emotions. It's okay to feel anxiety. It's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to even feel anger. So it's like when you try to avoid a lot of situations because you're trying to avoid those emotions, you're avoiding life. It's about
Yeah.
how you handle those emotions, and that, more important, how you handle the behaviors. And I think once you can understand your emotions and you can regulate your emotions, because I don't believe in controlling your emotions. I think it's important to manage and
Yeah.
regulate your emotions.
Yeah.
Um, once you have that power in of yourself, you can it wouldn't be that terrifying just to go up to and talk to a woman of any age. It wouldn't be as terrifying because you know that at the end of the day, even if it doesn't work out, she says no, I'm walking away and I feel down on myself, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on and I can see another woman I want to talk to. So yeah, I do think it's imperative for taking risks because regret is something that I used to work with in the with the elderly population and like people in nursing homes, and I've seen a lot of regret, and they get closer to death, and that is something that I know I took with myself. It's like I don't want that. I don't
Yeah.
want that. So I started doing more things that scared me. I
Yeah.
started to, even when it pertains to old women and younger men, I started to be like, you know what? Let me try just even experiencing, allowing myself to explore this, explore this to become to a potential relationship.
Yeah.
Let me tell my friends, let me tell my parents, let me tell people and kind of see where it goes. And typically I found it to be fine. It wasn't anything bad. Like I would get some judgments every now and then, but there's always people that were like that I didn't have a good connection with. So I do think once you
Yes,
kind of take,
and
mhm,
judgment is always the other person's issue.
of course, yeah,
We never judge someone based on them. We judge it based on our own shit.
yeah,
Always. Like you
hmm,
see in them something about yourself. And
yeah.
I just know that that's what judgment is always. And so
Oh
it's
yeah,
like, gosh, God love them. You know, I feel sorry for them. That's their own
exactly.
shit, you know?
Yeah, it's just projection. That's all
Yeah.
it is. It's just
Yeah.
projection.
Totally.
And so like once you see that, it just you have, as you just said, you have that sympathy for them. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's their stuff. I'm okay with what I'm doing. I'm as you even stated too, like I'm not hurting anyone. So I'm okay with what I'm doing. I'm gonna continue doing what I'm doing and
Yeah.
kind of like let them judge from afar.
Yes, and it's kind of human nature to judge anyway. Part of it, minor judgments are part of us staying safe, right? We judge a
Of
situation
course.
immediately. So judgment is part of our sort of, lizard brain making a quick decision on something right off the bat. So, when you understand where it comes from and you realize you're going to be judged no matter what, this is human nature, because most of us are insecure anyway, first of all, is you might as well give them something great to judge you on. I just think, well, I'm going to make it really exciting for you if you're going to judge me. Woo, why not? Um,
Exactly.
I just on a point that you said about feeling your fear, allowing your emotions and not suppressing them. I just wanted to give a book recommendation for anybody who's into more of an intellectual pursuit on some of these things. David Hawkins' book on letting go, The Power of Surrender, on how to handle your feelings. You have a feeling that comes and you don't push it under. You recognize it and you allow it to pass by actually looking at it and allowing it and then letting it go. And so anybody who's struggling with that, I highly recommend that book.
Yeah. I think that I know who you're talking about. I think they had that book is a really good book. And another thing that ties into more so of like having like overcoming our fears and overcoming the negative self-talk and overcoming engaging in sort of like behaviors which we end up regretting. Again, even like not approaching someone or not communicating or like ending a relationship because of other judgments.
So tell us, what is it about older women that you're attracted to?
So I said it before, there's like this allure to older women. It's how they take care of themselves, how they dress, and I do think when it comes with, I think there's a misconception when it comes with like as a woman gets older, she somehow gets unattractive. I don't believe that, or I hear this commonly online, which I think is ridiculous. They lose their value, which I completely disagree with that.
Yeah,
Um, and so, because I don't think anyone loses their value.
yeah.
This sort of allure, this like aura that an older woman gives, hard for me to explain. I'm trying to figure out the words to explain that. But also, there is this aspect of maturity, open communication. That's a big thing. They're very good at communicating. Typically, of course, not everyone, like just because you're older doesn't mean that you have this wisdom or maturity and stuff. People struggle. But what I found is that majority of the time they do have this like maturity, this open communication, and who they are. They're funny. They're okay with being silly. They're okay with saying like corny jokes, and which makes it even funnier, and yeah, I've just found it. And look, they're comfortable with who they are, especially when they've worked on themselves, they've healed or working on healing from their past traumas. They're comfortable with who they are, and they don't mind expressing that. Additionally, there 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 isn't this also pressure into like again meeting these like relationship markers. I found that my attraction just comes from an older woman being again who she is, and being unapologetic for her. who she is. And again, open communication. There's also this like nurturing effect too. There's nurturing, like how to nurture someone in a relationship, not like in a parental child, but in a relationship, how you can nurture that person.
Yeah.
I do feel like older women can give.
Yeah, so interesting. And from my perspective, the attraction with younger men. I mean, I've spoken about this in my videos, but first of all, sexual compatibility is
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
I find that I was once I hit my 40s, I don't know, my 40s were like my horniest decade. I was just like super horny in my 40s. And it is a sexual match made in heaven, as I say. Younger men are open to experimenting. They like a little bit of wild sex. Maybe younger women are a little apprehensive about that. They haven't got bored with the normal, missionary
Mhm.
position yet, wanting to try new things. So I love that, and this sort of optimism, and they've got their whole life in front of them, and so they're excited about life as opposed to being jaded. And as you say, sometimes you don't have that kind of relationship pressure of what's next. Although I've coached some older women who still want, oh, but when are we going to take it to the next level? And my advice
Mhm.
to women is, you got to stop thinking about the next level and be at the level your relationship is at and love it. Again, going back to what we were talking about in the present moment, really loving it for what it is. We spend our lives living in, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when he proposes. I'll be happy when we get married. I'll be happy when I make this amount of money or whatever, instead of being enough right now, letting whatever is here, living it fully and being really in the moment, and living all out in the moment and loving all out in the moment. And so I think, to your point of the relationship pressure, for the levels of relationship, to get rid of that no matter what your age is super important, because you are missing out on what's right now in front of you. Isn't this delicious, what's happening in your
Yeah.
relationship? This is delicious, what's happening now. This is all you
Yeah.
have, the present moment. Be in the deliciousness of it and stop
Mhm.
talking about the next level, you know?
Yeah. And I like that you said that, because with that, I've found too is like that's how self-sabotage in relationships happen. You like when it comes with like, okay, what's next? What's next? I found like with especially with some older women, they would be like, well, this is not gonna work. This can't work. It's impossible. It won't work because of, even younger men have this too. Like this won't work because of the age gap. What future is this person are we gonna have?
Yeah.
You know, or they do too focus on like as they get older, it's yeah, the changes, the dynamics is going to change. You know, you're going to notice if you're the older person, you're going to get older than your younger partner, and like and that, but that comes from when it happens. I think a lot of people are too forward thinking, which is good at times, but then as I said before, you can end up being anxious. That's how you develop high anxiety. If you keep focusing that on the future, it's something you can't control.
Yeah.
And so, like going, I gotta continue with your point. It's important to stay in this moment and enjoy what you're having now, because you're not, don't have, you don't know if you have the next day. You
Mm,
really don't.
no.
Once you have that idea, once you have that mindset, you're able to enjoy and be mindful in that present moment. And then you're able to enjoy the actual relationship without wondering, where's this gonna go? Well, you don't know what's going to go because you're here now.
Yes.
And I think once you kind of and it's always going to be hard because we're always going to think in the future, And so, but once you kind of reframe and come back to now, and maybe hey, maybe worry about tomorrow, but like if you go back to now, you're going to find a lot more peace. You're experiencing a lot more of those positive emotions, and and then yeah, you're able to enjoy your relationship. You're
Yeah.
able to enjoy that without thinking of like, well, what's going to happen when I get old? Or what's going to happen if this person leaves me? Or what's going to happen? It's like, well, it just hasn't happened yet. You'll deal with it when you deal with it, when if, when or if it gets there.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, so I do think again, that's why I really, I know we talked about this before. I really like that video of, I think it was like how to have a long-term relationship with an older woman.
Yeah.
It's like really stop focusing so much on that and just focus on just in that moment. Because if you have them, if you provide each other with an enjoyable experience, it's gonna end up having you end up having becoming a long-term relationship because then people want to spend time with the ones who make them feel good.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think having that mindfulness approach is going to be one that's going to be very successful in your relationships, even outside, in your work life, in your family life, in your friend life, in your own personal life. Mindfulness is very important. I tell my clients that too. It's a very important skill to work on. They don't believe me at the time, but then we get to there later on.
Yeah, it's so true. Oh my gosh. And, for me, passion is such an important aspect of life. And I can't tell you how many older women and men that I have encountered or worked with in my coaching practice who feel like their life is so mundane. And so many older women have said to me when I did my one woman show, which was all about my passionate romance with my younger husband. And they would come up to me and say, I've never experienced passion like you've just described. And I want that in my life. I realize that that's something I've not had. And I can't tell you how many people have said that. And I believe that that to have experienced that, it's like the old thing of it's better to have loved and lost than to never love before, Alfred Lord Tennyson. I truly believe that. Even if I had a passionate encounter that lasted one day or one weekend, the memories of that are so beautiful and delicious and spectacular. And the person that I became in the process of experiencing that passion was truly remarkable. And I talk a lot about how passion can fire us up to bring out our creative genius. And so for me, passionate encounters have inspired me to create, to write my books, to do things that I wouldn't have done had I not been fired up on passion and love and desire. And so it can really be an extremely motivating thing. And as Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, even the memories of great passion can lift us into our zone of genius. And to this day, I channel a specific relationship when I'm writing, when I really want to get creative. I channel that. That's the relationship I think about. That because that passion, the memories of that passion motivate me like nothing else. It's very interesting. And yet we are all like, oh my God, how can I protect myself to make sure that this relationship lasts forever? In the case of some young men who are apprehensive about maybe dating an older woman for, and that's their apprehension. And certainly for most women, they're afraid of that. And to me, it is better to have loved and lost than to never love at all, for sure, without a doubt. I'm almost 60 years old, and I know that as sure as I know my own name, that is the truth. And yeah, opening up to the possibilities, to passion, and getting the benefits of passion. Oh, you don't want to miss that just because you're afraid of what could go wrong.
If you live in just in this fear, yeah, you're gonna miss again so much of experience of passion and even then you could be experiencing a passionate moment and not be even present for that because you're thinking too much on what's gonna happen in the future, or you're thinking in the past, wondering like, what did I say the right thing? Did this? Like, focusing on just a past event and missing the passionate experience. And I found like people whom I've interacted with who have missed that.
Yeah.
I would talk to them like, well, you had that amazing, how was it? And like, well, I don't really know about, I don't know, I can't remember it. Or like, and it's just sad hearing that. It's sad
Yeah.
hearing that they can't even remember the feeling that they had because that's the one thing our memories are going to keep. They're going to keep the feeling.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what is a way that a guy can approach an older woman in your experience? What has been a successful way of approaching? Because I think the nitty gritty of it is really important to people that are watching.
From a male from a male perspective, we don't understand fully the female experience, knowing that like a lot of harassment, a lot of things that women have gone through. So I have found to the point of just like if I'm interested in someone, I try not to focus on the outcome. I'm like, you know what? I
That's
just want at
key.
least today to be like, I just want to say hello to a beautiful woman. I want to
Yes.
say hello. I want to interact. Because at least I'm gonna feel good about actually talking to her.
Yes.
And then like if you happen to see her again, now it's not gonna be that hard to start the conversation up, you
Yeah.
know?
And I like the example of the guy who hit me in the shopping mall with the map. I mean, you look at your surroundings and you see what could you comment on. For him, it was like, could I help you find something on the map? Because that's what was our surroundings. So if you're in a class, you could say, "Hey, can you help me with this bike setting? I'm not sure how to set the whatever." If you're in a spin class or whatever, there's you can sort of look around and come up with things. You can even make up the fact that you don't know how something works, even if you
The,
do, right? I mean, why
yeah.
not? And the other thing that I loved about this particular guy in the shopping mall is he didn't ask me for my number. He did something super romantic. It was a risk on his part that he would never see me again, but it was so worth it. And it was unthreatening and amazing to me and super exciting. And he said, before he got up to leave after showing me things on the map that he thought I should see, he said, "Meet me at 2 o'clock tomorrow. There's a music festival in the park." And he showed me the park on the map and he said, "Meet me by the Angel at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Maybe you come." And he left. That was it. I didn't even know his name, but I was so intrigued and it was so hot the way he did it. You better believe I showed up at the Bloody Angel at 2 o'clock or 5 after 2 the next day.
Yeah.
And there he was waiting for me.
Yeah. I think
And
I
that was the start of a beautiful romance.
yeah. I think yeah, taking those kind of risks, be like, doing something that again, most guys won't do, which is just like, hey, meet me at this place if you're interested. Leaving it up to her, and then just kind of wait. And if she doesn't come, then find a way to enjoy the night. And so,
Exactly.
and I think yeah, taking just more of those kind of risks, I do feel that like people just do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, and again, like just not not focusing too much on the outcome. If you see
Yeah.
an opportunity, just take the opportunity.
Very key. Yes. Don't get ahead of yourself. Just see how many no's you can get that day. Like just, don't think of the outcome. You're absolutely right because now your ego is getting involved and all sorts of shit happens. So no, you're so right. It's like, okay, I'm going to just take this chance and I'm not going to be attached to how it works out.
Hmm.
And the number thing, oftentimes you don't want to let that person go without asking for their number because you may never see them again. And I found that if somebody engages me in conversation and is interested in me, it could even start with just a non-sexual compliment.
Yeah.
I love what you're wearing, or you have beautiful hair, or gosh, whatever. It could just be a compliment of some kind. Even "you're very beautiful," which is what the beautiful man who I married said to me in the grocery store. Everybody loves a compliment, and when it's delivered in a very sweet, nice way, as opposed to a very overt, threatening way, no, everybody likes a compliment. They really do. And from that, you can start a conversation. And then, younger guys have said to me, "I've really enjoyed this conversation. And would you mind giving me your number? So I'd love to continue this conversation a little bit later." And that's a way of, yeah, we've had a great conversation. You want to continue the conversation? Sure, here's my number. I've really found that to be a good approach as well. When you're interested in somebody else, people love questions about them, about their life. If you're interested in them and that's the conversation, it's then a lot easier to say, "Hey, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. Would you give me your number?"
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think if anything, the if you're going to have an objective, the objective is to just have a good conversation.
Yeah.
And really what you can do to have that good conversation.
Yeah.
I think once you have that mindset, like I just want to have a good conversation. I just want to enjoy a moment. Again, everything that you want would
Yeah.
come. Like, maybe not with this person, but it could be with the next person. So I do think that it's just important to, again, just be more mindful and really kind of like limit the expectations and focus more on having a good experience with that person.
Yeah.
And I found that it's very effective. It's a
Yeah.
very effective a thing because also you're meeting a person, it's like cold approaching someone. You don't know what the situation is. It could be a married woman, it could be someone who's a lesbian, like it could be a man, it could be a woman who's just not ready to date. And that's okay. You can still enjoy the moment with that person. And
Hmm.
I think you could come away with it in a very healthy with a very healthy mindset. And I think that what you were talking about compliments, that can go with so many people. Like, yeah, you can compliment someone's beauty, but if you don't feel comfortable, you can compliment someone. Sure, you can compliment on anything about the person.
Yeah.
And I found people have done that with me. And, I've had dudes compliment me, in which it wasn't even sexual. It was just something that was nice. I'm like, and that was a good experience to have
Exactly
that.
right.
So
Exactly
exactly.
right. The
So
power of a compliment.
exactly. Because you can help, it's like you have that impact on someone else too. You can make that person even feel good.
Yes.
And
And
like,
it's
and
like, I mean, you've heard me talk about the smile as well. People
mhm,
forget, guys are afraid to smile, and people forget to smile. And just smiling at somebody, whether it's because you're interested in them, or just because you're being nice. When I'm walking down the street and someone's walking towards me, I just try to catch their eye and smile. Just because
yeah.
we're all human and we're all of the same source. And the more we do that, the easier it's going to be as well to sort of have a conversation. And guys have approached me and just said, "Oh gosh, what a beautiful day it is. It's so unusual that it's so warm in October," or whatever. And then you say, "Yeah, it really is." Like, and then the conversation, it can start with something as inane as that. You just start the conversation and you can immediately judge whether the person is going to just give you a short answer and walk off, or whether they're going to smile and continue the conversation with you. These are just really easy ways to tell, okay, I'm going to continue with this conversation, and then ask for the number or whatever. But I think we overcomplicate it. We try to come up with the perfect thing to say and all of that. No, just look around you and say what's on your mind with a smile and non-threatening, and see if they respond. And if they do, great, continue the conversation. And if they don't and they scowl at you, God love them. They're just
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, you don't know what's going on in that person's day. So it's like it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. So just be like, all right, well, that person's probably having a shitty day. Let me just
Exactly
go
right.
off on my day then.
Exactly right. I think, the bottom line is we want all younger men to understand that you're so not alone, that this is a very, I don't want to use the word common because I don't like that word, but it's not unusual at all for younger men to be attracted to older women. This has been since time immemorial. And so don't be shocked by it, don't be ashamed of it. And for the older women out there, I want to say, broaden your horizons and maybe think about dating a younger guy. Go just a little bit younger if you're not comfortable with it right away, because take it from me, it can be one of the greatest things ever. And this whole thing of it makes you come alive. And why not feel alive? Other aspects of your life will improve because of that. So I think that's the message. And societal stigma is not based in truth. It's based on something, that a thread that we carry on, instead of really looking and going, is it true? Or is it just a societal narrative that we've all bought into? And really,
Mhm.
that's all it is.
Oh yeah, but definitely, it's just what I believe I said this before. It's just what we thought what is normal and comfortable for us. But as we're just, again, not just not just evolving, like, physically, there's also this social evolution too. And we're seeing that, like, things aren't black and white. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of gray, and it's like, and it's okay to be in that.
Yeah.
And it's, again, as you've always stated, like, as long as you're not hurting someone,
Yeah.
then everything's okay. So I do think when it comes with, like, those fears of, like, should I get with this person who's older? Should I get with this person who's younger? As long as the person's a good person, as long as the person treats you right, as long as the person can communicate with you, as long as the
Yeah.
person can is mature, you know, and has that emotional awareness, then go for it.
Yes.
And that's the thing, go for it.
Go for it and realize that we all have to deal with rejection in life, that as you said, failing at things is a part of life, and we need to really understand that, because I think with all this perceived perfection that we see on social media, everybody seems to have their acts together, everybody seems to be living this perfect life. No, they're not. They are
Hmm.
failing their way to success, just like everybody. A failure or failing at something is a stepping stone to success. You actually have to step on it. It has to actually happen to get you there. And we've been sold a bill of goods by this whole perception of perfection, which does not exist and is, quite frankly, wrong. And quite frankly, nobody wants to live like that, because you'll get to the end of it goes, well, that was a boring experience. Who wants to live this straight flatlined life? Right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
contrast that causes life. It's contrast that creates the deliciousness of the tapestry of life. And I just want everybody to realize you are not a failure if things don't go your way. Trust the process, trust life. It's got your back. I love what Einstein said, that the biggest decision we have to make is if this is a friendly or a hostile universe. And personally, make a decision that it is a friendly universe and realize that the universe has your back. And so if something is not working out for you, trust and believe it's not meant to. It's just, you're just being guided in a different direction. And this whole fear of making mistakes is a new phenomenon. People are terrified of getting it wrong and of being hurt. It's part of the process. And the more you love and trust yourself, the shorter the hurt is going to be, you know?
Yeah. And I really like that, because it's like, I usually I use this for my clients, is like the buffalo versus the cows.
Yeah.
So usually buffaloes, they, when there's a storm coming, they charge the storm. Cows run away. So when the reason why the buffaloes charge the storm is because the buffaloes, once they get past that storm, maybe they have some scrapes, scratches, all that, but they get past quicker. When you avoid the storm, when you run away from it, like some of the cows, the storm gets bigger and bigger, and you just get swept up into it. Then a lot of the damage happens. So
Yeah.
I always say, like, be the buffalo, kind of go ahead for it. If something's scary, if it's something you're afraid of, go for it. Because
Yeah.
initially, it may, even if it's rejection, you may experience rejection, and it may suck. But again, it's not going to last that long, because if you could just change the thought process and saying, like, well, I actually did it. I did it. Then you're going to realize you're opening up yourself for much more experience, again, experiencing those positive emotions. And
Yeah.
I do think it's just imperative to, again, see life as that. Be the buffalo, charge things that
Yeah.
that that cause you anxiety, charge them. And I think that you're gonna have a much more fulfilling life. Because you continue to avoid, you can keep avoiding, it's gonna be safe, but it's gonna come and get you.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. You're going to wake up one day going, damn, why didn't I? Why didn't I? And that is the worst thing ever. Oh
Absolutely.
my, Matthew, is there anything we haven't covered? Is there anything else you want to chat about?
We talk about, like, not being in that present moment. I mean, being in the present moment, not focusing on the future. And I do feel like people are going to be like, okay, yeah, but I want to know, how is it going to be in a long-term relationship? Like, is it going to work? Is it something that I can, that it's going to be, again, like, as Matthew would say, fulfilling. Um, so with that, just with your experience, like, how is that being in a long-term commitment with an age gap? as well.
Well, I mean, I think it's the same as being in a long-term committed relationship with anybody. It's you don't make age the thing. It can be if you make it into that, and you do whatever else it takes to be great in a committed relationship. And that's a whole nother video of what that takes. First of all, I think both people have to be 100% in, right? 100% in.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you only go into the committed relationship being aware of red flags. If there's red flags, age difference is not a red flag. If there
Hmm.
is a red flag that comes as a result of it, that's different. But age difference is not a red flag. If there's other red flags, then you like nip it in the bud and you don't get into a long-term relationship. But that's the same with any age, difference or no difference at all. And so once you have decided that there aren't any deal-breaking red flags and you're going to go for it, it is just 100% commitment on both people's part to be great in a relationship, to kiss each other hello and goodbye, to communicate instead of clam up over issues, to make a commitment to keep that sexual spark going, to have a great sex life, which is so key to a long-term relationship. And so I don't think it's any different. Honestly, I don't. That really would be my answer to you. Sure, there's going to be, as you had mentioned, different references. I mean, not only was there a 17-year age gap between me and my husband, but I grew up in totally different worlds. I grew up at the bottom of the African continent, a farm girl from South Africa. He grew up part Native American in the United States. And so, he was more of an urban guy. Like everything was a different socioeconomic situation, different level of education. Like we're talking different on every level. And that stuff, because of the passion and the love, that stuff didn't bother me. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that it requires the same level of commitment to the relationship, regardless of the age gap. That would be my answer to you.
I think and I completely agree with that. I do think that people, again, focus so much on that difference of the age gap. And I do think like if you engage in that relationship, it's going to be the same as another relationship. And even then, like, the reason why I even asked that question is that there is this thing that I've been asked about. Well, again, what happens when, let's say, she gets older and you have to take on that caregiving role? I had to sit with them and think about that. I'm like, that's true. And that's very common in other relationships, whether the same age or there's an age gap. I've seen people who same age and grew elderly together, and one person still had to be the caregiver. I've seen, and without giving any names, I've had friends in which they were the same age and there was an accident and one had to
Exactly.
be the caregiver. And
Exactly.
so I do think that when you do have that, 'cause I do think it's important to have those conversations of realities, like, because you do engage in that. Again, older woman, younger man, older man, younger woman. There is a possibility of you may take on that caregiving role. And I would even say that one, it doesn't matter if you love that person, if you're committed with that person, that doesn't matter. And I would say that it's something that's going to happen typically within relationships, is that you take on a role that you accepted. Like, I think especially when you do a long-term relationship or you get married, there is that part where the relationship dynamic is going to change. It's going to fluctuate. I want to say fluctuate. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important just to know that, like, that doesn't have to be a worry, in the sense of, like, sorry, it doesn't have to be something where you have to a barrier or a wall that you can't be in that relationship because of what can happen in the future. as
Exactly
well.
right. No, I think you're right. I think awareness is important, but I think that could happen at to any relationship, and it's socially acceptable for a older man to be with a younger woman, and the
Exactly.
younger woman is. And we do know that women don't age as fast as men. This is just a true, and women live longer than men. This is just a
Hmm.
scientific fact. Facts and
Yeah.
figures are there. And you know, my parents are the same age, and it's my mother who's looking after my father at this point. And
Yeah.
that's just a very common thing, and they are the same age. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think if you love one another, there's ways of dealing with things as well. I've always thought, well, if something happened, like let's say, for example, you were in love with somebody. There was this book of questions, and I was engaged to this guy, and we were playing this book of questions game one night, and one of the questions was, you're engaged to be married, and your fiance has a terrible accident and ends up a quadriplegic. What do you do? Do you go ahead with the wedding, or do you leave them? Fascinating to go around a table and listen to people's answers. And the guy that I was going to marry said, I'm out for sure. For sure. There's no way. I haven't gotten married yet. I've gotten an out. I don't want to have that in my life. And I was like, woo, red flag, ding.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, that's a callous answer. That's just a
Hmm.
definite callous. And for me, I said, I would go ahead with it, because now this person is facing the worst thing. They probably want to commit suicide anyway, based on what's just happened. Let's face it, they're probably dealing with things like that. Now, the person who's supposed to love them unconditionally abandons them. I could never do that to somebody. So for
Yeah.
me, I would go ahead and be there for them, but I would make some sort of an arrangement. Listen, I love you. I'm gonna hire people, or you know, make sure you're okay. But I'm also gonna have a lover on the side, because I'm not gonna spend the next 60 years of my life or whatever without passion and sex and all of that. That's, to me, that's what I would do.
Hmm.
And so these are interesting questions. We all have a different take on them. And but for me, I could never crush somebody that I loved just because of that. I would find an alternative way to still be in their life, to still be there for them, to still show them love, to have unconditional love for them, and make some sort of an arrangement so that, you know, I could have a physical and another love experience outside of that. That's what I would do. So I think all of these
Yeah.
things, right? I think when somebody is old and you know, maybe you're very young and you still have a life, I think part of loving somebody is to say, look, you go and do your thing. I don't want to hold you back. I think that's also love. One,
Yeah.
you know, staying with them could be love, but the other person letting them go could also be love, right?
Yeah. And I do think you're
Or
getting
is
on
also
this,
love.
yeah, and I do think you're getting to this point that it's like, again, like as we've pretty much been talking about this, and the reason why we're having this conversation, that it's not really too much of the gap, the age gap. I think it's all going to be towards the person, the individual,
Yes.
and uh, and that's what matters the most. So it's like if you
Yes.
have a connection with someone, regardless of like age, of course, appropriate, of course, like regardless of that age, if you connect with that person, that's what matters.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because yeah, like yeah, you can have that age gap and something happens, and if that person is still going to be there for you, then you found that person, you found your partner,
Yeah.
who, despite anything, will always be by your side. And I think, and I think that that's the kind of the point of a lot. I feel like a lot of this is that to get rid of a lot of those kind of rules and stuff, and look into who the person is.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so true. Well, Matthew, this has been so great, so enlightening. And
Yeah,
I hope you come back, and we hope we get back together and discuss this more. I hope we continue this conversation. And
absolutely.
thank you for reaching out, and thank you for being here. This has been great.
Thank you for having me again. Like it's been a wonderful experience. I find it
Yeah.
to be very interesting. I always enjoy. There's many of sort of um things I'm interested in, and one of it's also just relationships, and especially within that age gap dynamic, because I have experience in this, and so I just like to talk about that and again normalize that more. And there is a normalcy, and I'm just happy to see that that's happening and kind of push it even further.
Yeah, me too. And so if anybody has any questions for either Matthew or I on this subject, please put them in the comments. We'll both read the comments and maybe feature your question in a next video as well. So I do love to get all your comments and questions. So leave them down below. And thanks everybody for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so now. Turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.